Hello everybody and welcome to the Night Garden. I am Vamp and I'm here to talk to you about goal setting today. Typically I would say that I'm here to talk to you about art today, but it being after a holiday that is exactly a week after another holiday and working on the same work in progresses through all of December, I don't want to share more of the same and bore you guys with the same images. So what I will be doing is I will be showing my real-time process over to the left here while I am my right, your left, while I am talking through these talking points. So let's start with resolutions versus goal setting. A lot of people will use January 1st as an excuse to make a bunch of goals with the best of intentions in order to better themselves or their business or whatever they're doing throughout the course of the year. And that's excellent. You know, if you need a day to do that, then great, go for it. But the fact of the matter is that resolutions are basically just statements that have no roadmap or game plan attached to them, right? Like, I'm going to curse less. I'm going to be kinder. I'm going to go to the gym and work out. I'm going to lose 15 pounds or something like that. Like, these are all great in theory, but how do you get to that point? It's just, a statement. And a goal can be the same thing, but with a goal, you can make small actionable steps in order to hit those things. So if you have a goal, typically you have a reason for doing that goal. So if my resolution is I want to lose 15 pounds, then I can look at it as a goal and say, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week to lose 15 pounds. Or I'm going to make small changes to my diet and eat less sugar in order to lose 15 pounds. So with that in mind, I want to share some of the goals that I put together for this year. And full transparency, this is something that I started to think about in September at my birthday. Typically, I do my resolutions lined up with my birthday rather than the new year because that feels more genuine to me. It's the day that I am becoming a year older. What have I accomplished in that past circle of year rather than the calendar year? And what can I accomplish in the next? So I did not do that this year because there was a lot of family drama going on, a lot of sad situations going on around my birthday. So now I've decided to do it for the new year just to catch up. I'm still planning on finishing by my birthday, but we'll see how that goes, right? I want to make it clear that I am a multi-faceted creator. I am an actor, I write, and I draw full-time for a living. So these are all things that I have goals following. A lot of my goals this year are kind of intertwined in that way. Like they're going to kind of play off of each other. One of the overarching resolutions that I have is to have a cohesive portfolio. And a lot of these are stepping stones to get to that point. And a lot of them are world building, which is one of my favorite things ever. I am planning on talking all of this out throughout my YouTube, but some of these things do also have their own channels and are kind of in their own islands, so to speak, so they may not show up as much here. That being said, my first goal to do is I want to illustrate Bram Stoker's Dracula. Dracula is in the public domain. You can read it on Project Gutenberg, which is gutenberg.org. It's not something that has rights or something that you have to pay the royalties to. I don't need to be hired to do it. So it's something that I've wanted to do for a very long time. If you know anything about me, my username is VampireAntihero, then you know that I have a love for horror, for cryptid, for gothic romance, all of those types of things, but specifically vampires. Vampires are my number one thing. So it's been a long-standing dream of mine to illustrate a prominent vampire novel. And what better one to do than one that I can do royalty-free and still make my own designs for. There are plenty of different renditions of Dracula. There are knockoffs of Dracula. Nosferatu just came out on Christmas Day, and that is a retelling of Dracula. So that is perfect. I am going to break this down into actionable steps by first, I'm going to read it. By reading it, I refamiliarize myself with the material, and then I can go through and pull the character descriptions, the place descriptions, certain key moments, and kind of put them into their own document so that I can refer back to that and base illustrations on those things. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do some concept art. I'm going to draw the characters the way that I see them. I'm going to do a couple of different iterations to figure out what ones I like the best. And then I can start doing some illustration planning. I can do some thumbnails. I can do some color keys. I might work in a limited color palette to kind of challenge myself and also to lean into that gothic horror kind of element. But for the most part, there's a lot of different things that I can do with this project. It's going to be really, really fun. I can't wait to launch into it. But the first thing first is to read the book. So once that is read, I will start doing stuff with this. I do think that realistically, I probably won't start sharing things about the project until March or April, give or take. That gives me enough time to read. It gives me enough time to film some of the processes and then put some videos together ahead of time so that I can have a content schedule. So that's the Bram Stoker project. That leads me to my next project. The next thing that I want to talk about, this goal, is to do more collaborations this year. So because the goal is to do more collaborations this year, I actually have a few that are already going on. There's one that I can't talk about too much. It is a video game project that has been on the back burner for most of 2024. So I'm hoping that the group that I'm working with can get back to working on elements for that project. I do think that it would be a lot of fun to get back to that, and I'm looking forward to it. The second one is a new collaboration with a good friend of mine. Her name is Tiffanie. She goes by the Candlelight, and I'll have a link to her channel. Tiffanie is also a multifaceted artist. She does 2D, 3D, and she's learning animation like I am. So this particular goal is a as of yet unannounced project. We're working towards announcing it and making it its own thing on its own channel, which I will also link to in the description below. But it is based on the ancient Greek pantheon, and it's going to have some modern elements. There's going to be a lot of really fun concept art stuff that we're doing with it. We're probably going to be doing a lot of work on it in the early half of 2025, but we'll start to share things probably closer to the later half of 2025. It's going to have a lot of interesting elements surrounding gods getting their power from certain things. It's going to have some elements of choice, some elements of social commentary. So if this is something that sounds interesting to you, then keep an eye out. The collaborative project itself is called Wax and Wings, so keep an eye out for anything that is titled that or anything that is talking about Wax and Wings. The third collaboration that I want to talk about is one that has already been all over this channel. It's kind of overtaken my life in a lot of 2024 outside of the kind of other things that I've been doing. So that is Tales from the Night Garden. And Tales from the Night Garden is a illustration project as well as a novel project. It's writing, first and foremost. It's a collaboration that I'm doing with my best friend, Auden. And we have been working on this for almost 2 years now. So where Tales from the Night Garden is a collaboration, there's so much that is kind of integrated into Tales from the Night Garden that it's kind of its own section here in the video. But the video that is playing off to the side here, this is actually one of the characters. That is Azalea Barclay. She is one of the prominent side characters and will probably eventually have one of her own novels. if this is something that winds up doing well. So Tales from the Night Garden is a story from our hearts. It is about vampires, werewolves, and witches. It is a really elaborate love story to cryptids and to feeling like you belong somewhere, even if that somewhere isn't necessarily society at large. So book 1 is Tales from the Night Garden Lemon Balm. Lemon Balm is at full speed ahead right now. We should have the first half of part 1 back from the editor next week, which is pretty awesome. I imagine after that, there's going to be some corrections we need to make, some continuity errors that we need to fix, small things, but this is something that has already been beta read. It's something that's already been edited from a non-professional editor. Our professional editor, this should be close to our final edits at this point. And then once we have the funds built, we will have the second half of part 1 sent over to that editor, and we'll keep going in that direction. The editing is kind of slow going because we are needing to build up the funds to pay the editor for her time, which is totally fine. Speaking of, if you do need a developmental editor, then I do recommend Julian Greystoke. She is fantastic at what she does. And I will have a link to her in the card, wherever it goes, or in the link in the description below. Hi, William. The next part of Tales from the Night Garden is book 2, which is Aloe. Aloe is still in its drafting stages. It's kind of Schrodinger's draft, really, because originally when we wrote the first book, we had it like double the length. There was a lot that we put into one book, and we decided to split it in half for reading purposes. If we didn't do that, it would be really, really long, close to 500 pages, and we just didn't want to have our debut be so long. So we cut the book in half. That means that that Aloe in its original form has been beta read, but we're changing it so much that it essentially hasn't been beta read yet. So we'll need to finish this drafting form this year, which is the plan for that. I also have a prequel story that I've been writing that is called A Priest's Lament or A Pirate's Moon. If it stays as one book, it will be A Pirate's Moon. It may split into 2 books, which will be A Priest's Lament and A Pirate's Moon. And these are following my vampire character, Acanthus. So Acanthus has a very long backstory. They are close to 800 years old, and they have had a lot of adventures. They are kind of the reason why the Night Garden exists as it is. The Night Garden is an underground refugee path, essentially, that helps disenfranchised supernaturals get away from bad situations. So A Priest's Lament and A Pirate's Moon is well into its drafting phase. The first attempt, I wound up stopping short because I realized that we had a lot that we needed to change for book 1 and book 2. And so now that that stuff is now correctly established, I needed to go back and rewrite. So I am currently rewriting what was my first attempt. My first attempt had gotten to about 100 pages before I stopped. So I'm pretty pleased with it. I haven't had to change too much at the point that I'm at, but I will need to add certain things and pad certain things as I go. That is something I hope to have that finished with its drafting stage. So Aloe and A Priest's Lament / A Pirate's Moon, I want all of that to be done with its drafting stages this year, which is something that is absolutely doable for me. The last thing about the Tales from the Night Garden that I would like to bring up is that if this story does take off, one of the illustration things I would like to do is I have some tarot decks that I've started to develop for them. And I don't want to work on them if the story winds up falling flat on its face. I don't want to work on them and then not have anybody interested in those things. But like I said, this is a story that is like a heart story. This is something that I have put a lot of time, effort, and energy into. It's something that I absolutely adore, and I hope that people do enjoy it as well. So if this is something that people enjoy, then there are 2 different tarot decks that I will eventually have out. This is not something that will likely happen this year, but it is something that I'm keeping in the back of my mind, and I've started to kind of concept. So there's a lot to do this year in terms of Tales from the Night Garden. I'm really hoping that we can get Lemon Balm published this year, and if we can, then that's going to be one of my bucket list items. I've wanted to publish something for a very, very long time, so I'm excited to see where that goes. The next resolution is commissions. I've been working for the last month and a half or so on some commission examples that I've been slowly adding to my website with a menu of prices in order to reopen my commissions. My commissions have essentially been closed since April because of the things that were going on with my little brother. And now I'm finally to a point mentally where I can handle taking clients again. So I am hoping to get that open by January 15th. And I'm on track for that goal. Originally, I had wanted it open by January 1st. But this brings me to the next big thing that I wanted to talk about. So I'm hoping to have my commissions ready by the 15th, like I was saying. But also, one of the things that I've made a resolution for is to make Ko-fi and Patreon a little bit more worth it for my supporters. It was starting to be a little bit much to start putting things up, but I've kind of fixed my time management a little bit, and I want to give at least a monthly freebie or something like that to some of the paid subscribers. So currently, I only have people at 1 tier. I think that the plan is to make a monthly tutorial that is available for free to the highest tier people, and then also a monthly freebie for the middle tier people. So the low tier people will still get early access and get questions on things and whatnot. Everybody will be able to beta read certain things, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, the freebie is going to be planning pages for the next month. So January 15th, I will have some planning pages ready for February, and then we will continue to go from there. So I know I know by doing this, I am missing January as a planning page, but that's okay. I wanted this to be a New Year thing instead of a random update in December kind of thing. So if you'd like a January page, I won't have anything finished by the end of January. So that being said, I am planning on putting together a planner of some sort for the year for next year. So this will be part of workshopping that and getting what the planning pages are ready. The tutorials and tips I already mentioned. I upload stuff to YouTube all the time. I have small tips that go up as shorts, among other things, but for the most part, it's tips and tutorials. Those are Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and then the Friday upload is a mishmash of things. Sometimes it's a time lapse, sometimes it's an art tip, sometimes it's a pep talk. But YouTube is still going as per usual, but I do have 3 more in-depth tutorials that I'm planning that are going to be built throughout this year. One of them is focusing on color and light. One of them is focusing on line work and the more in-depth line art, like what I'm doing here. And one of them is focusing on making creative business decisions with intent. So I'm hoping to get at least 1 bigger tutorial out per quarter, and those will be for free for the highest tier Coffee and Patreon supporters, and then they'll be for sale through Gumroad and my website and digital platforms like that. The first part of that has already been kind of done. I've decided the topics and I've started to build the assets for those things. So I'm not sure which one will be first, but those will be coming up soon. That kind of is everything. The last resolution that I have is I want to make more products. So I have a digital product in mind of some of my more ornate frame things as assets. I can do those as just a digital download for like Twitch items and stuff like that, or I can do it as like illustration items, those types of things. So I'm planning some asset packs like that. I'm also planning to do like wallpapers for free download after a while. And I want to get a tarot deck put together enough to crowdfund that. So the tarot deck is something that has been on the back burner for years. I'm going to actively develop that this year and actually get it ready to a point of where I think I will be comfortable actually developing it. The original tarot deck was called the Gothic Esteem deck, and where I like the theme that is there, I never really sat down and planned out each card. I just kind of went, I want to do this. This sounds cool. So I need to sit down and actively plan out those cards, write out their descriptions, and get that deck put together. That is something that I'm hoping to be finished putting together probably by the third quarter of the year, and start actively figuring out the cards by the end of the year. So I don't know if the tarot deck is going to be this year or if it's just going to be in the planning phases, but it depends on these other things. You know, nothing exists in a vacuum, and I do have a lot of other projects that I've talked through in this point. So hopefully all of that will go on track, and I will be able to share more pretty soon. But you should let me know in the comments. Did you sit down and figure out any goals for this year? What are you excited about? Do you have any projects that you want to share? I'm happy to hear them, and I'd be excited to talk over things. So let me know. And if you liked this video, then please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support some of the projects that I mentioned, then you can do so on the things listed on the screen here. There is a bunch of stuff for sale through my website. I will have those asset packs and things. Commissions will be available fairly soon, so keep an eye out for those things. When I do launch the reopening of my commissions, there will also be a discount code that I will include for that. And I have a weekly newsletter that I put out on Wednesdays every week through Coffee and Patreon. I'm working on bringing this to an email list as well, but it's not quite set up yet. If that's something that sounds interesting to you, then be sure to become a free member or follow on Coffee and Patreon. Speaking of Coffee and Patreon, I'd like to thank my supporters, Jen Frank and Lovely Rosie T. I could not keep making videos like this without you. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your support. You can catch me on Wednesday mornings on Twitch, and then every so often throughout the week as well. The only scheduled day is on Wednesdays. But I hope that you are all taking care of yourselves, drink your water, and do what you can. And I will see you next Friday. Bye, everybody.